In the recent hotfix, they actually changed Shroud of Dynar to give you the 3-second buff when you leave invisibility in every possible way. Yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about it. So it's actually, it sounds like a small buff, but it actually is a very significant buff, because before, if you watched my MK1 bow level cap and even the level cap comments video, I said that you would only get the buff if you hit the enemy with your melee upon leaving the invisibility. Now you can be further away and you'll get the buff. That is actually a big change. For disruption is better, but not as much. But I do believe that that's intentional. So it's depending on the weapon you have. You might think you will have enough range, and sometimes you would just use it and you would not trigger it because the enemy was a little bit further away than you anticipated. And that's not a problem anymore. You will get your buff. I think that is a pretty significant change, gotta be honest, because I've had many instances where I didn't get the buff because I wasn't close enough. And then if you're finding a demo, you know how problematic that is, because you're gonna have to trigger your invisibility again. It's kind of specific, but for me it's very significant because my weapon wasn't dealing damage at all without the Shroud of Dynar buff, and then if I didn't get it right, it would be very punishing on my run. So I think that's very good. But now losing invisibility in every possible, leaving invisibility now they said that leaving invisibility in every possible way would give you the buff. We have to think about what they mean with leaving invisibility. So that's not only attacking, that is also your buff ending. Your invisibility buff ending is going to give you the Shroud of Dynar buff for the damage, critical chance, status chance, all that stuff. But there are two instances where you won't get the buff, and that's where I think it's intentional. If you think on leaving invisibility, it is leaving invisibility, but at the same time it isn't. Well, if you run out of boundaries, not sure if it is because of the simulacrum, you won't get the buff. And also if you get pulsed by a nullifier, you won't get the buff. Sometimes if the nullifier pulses, you lose the buff, but I'm not sure how accurate that is, because during the run I felt like I kept the buff, but it was just not showing the icon, or maybe I was just losing the buff completely. So could this be intentional? Yeah, it is a possibility, or they could just have forgotten about this. I think those are the two instances where you lose invisibility, and yeah, it might really be like an iron skin, you know, that when you run into one of those, you really lose it, just like any other buff. So it might be that like entering a nullifier bubble, isn't actually leaving invisibility, is being dispelled, and then yep, that's right, you won't get the buff. And same goes for falling out of boundaries, because that's usually removes all of your buffs. Usually, some of them not, but yeah. I think that is actually a very significant change to Shroud of Dynar. And the only thing I would wish it would really work is to give the slash procs for something like the gun blades and some other weapons that have projectiles, such as the Verdilac, even the Xena Star. Those would be very interesting because it's kind of clunky with them. This is the current build on the Stropha. 14% status chance and over 100% critical chance. So let's take a look. I do think it works, it's just not giving the slash procs. 14% status chance. Yeah, that seems like What do you think? I think it works. But really, for the slash procs, I think it needs to be... Oh my god, I was not expecting that. I think for the slash procs, we need them to be melee. Change it to high noon because it's easier to land it. Yeah, you can see slash procs there. They just work, but really for the shots, it doesn't work. Really for the Xenastar is very interesting how it works, because pretty much every damage instance will end your Shroud of Dynar. Really feels like it works, but we don't get the slash procs, and yeah. Could it be busted if it applied the slash procs? Possibly, because it's such a... I don't know, it seems like such a low damage. Of course, if we armor strip, the heat is gonna... It's really gonna... caught up with your health, but... For the slash procs, it could be a very low amount, but it would just... it would be cool, you know. I think every weapon with projectile really... it doesn't work for the slash procs, but... That'll be interesting about how OP it would be. I'm not so sure. Or even if it would make people play Varuna just for these. I mean, would be interesting, definitely. I think the hotfix is actually pretty significant. As small it might look, it adds some quality of life to Varuna in the Shroud of Dynar. Yeah. I think it would be interesting if they would add some more unique interaction, or just allow the projectiles to lend the slash procs. But let me know what you guys think about that, and the whole change. Leave it a like and consider subscribing.